Hey everyone, my name is Molly Locker and I am the founder of Sunny Care Services. What we do is we help families that have lost a loved one. We take on all the tasks that come with closing out a person's life just so that family can get back to what's ever important to them, and just be able to grieve in peace. So, what I'm about to present to you are some things that I find a lot of people don't think about after they've lost a loved one, in terms of where can they find things about their loved one and services that were in their person's name that was in that person's name, accounts that was in that person's name, just general information that you would need for that person, documents that they had created, pictures that they had taken. It really runs the gamut. I mean, money that's in their name, all of those things. So I'm going to talk about three main places where I find the most information about a lost loved one. If a family didn't know where their parents or their spouse or their child kept anything, these are the three places I look first for all of that important information that we talked about. I mean, it can be even things like who was their estate attorney, who was their financial advisor, where were investments in their name, who was their 401k with. I mean, the list goes on because there's so much to handle when you lose a loved one. So the three things that I feel like are really important to look through are the lost loved one's phone, if they had a smartphone, of course. Most people do these days, but you never want to assume. Email and mail, physical mail. And so I call these things the keys to the kingdom because I feel like they are the most important places to check right after you've lost a loved one. So hopefully you have access to them, and we're just going to talk through what you can find in each of these really quickly. So the first one I have is the phone. And so the phone, I could go on for days about. I mean, first of all, hopefully your lost loved one shared their unlock code with you. Just as a quick aside for you personally, I hope you're sharing your unlock code with someone that you trust and know will take good care of that, because when I work with clients, the absolute best place for me to start is in that person who passed away in their phone. And so in a best case scenario, we have access to that because of so many things. So one is you have so much of your life on your phones these days. I mean, most people really have an application for almost everything. So whether that's their email, which is super helpful to get into, and we'll talk about that in the next slide. They have applications for your bank. They have apps for what other money sharing systems you are using. So I talk a lot about how people forget about things like PayPal and Venmo and Cash App, all of these different money sharing apps that are out there now. Those can carry balances that are in your loved one's name. So looking for those, I mean, apps in general, from my perspective of helping families close out their loved one's life, is apps inform me of where that person had an account. And so if I can figure out where they had an account, I can normally figure out if they had a credit card attached to that we need to either close out, if they had a reoccurring payment coming out of that application for whatever reason. Some of these apps are subscription based, so we'll want to close those out. So the apps really inform what is the breadth of items that I need to take care of for this person. The phone also carries a lot of necessity when it comes to two-step authentication. So what that means is then if I am trying to access your lost loved one's email and they have two-step authentication on there, it typically will prompt a code sent to your lost loved one's phone. And so with that, I need to be able to get to the phone and see the text message with that code coming through to be able to access their email. And of course, that's just not for everything, but with secure items like your email, banking, the list kind of goes on. You'll need to be able to have some kind of way to authenticate that you're able to get into that system, and having your phone, having that lost loved one's phone available is so helpful for that. It also contains all of your photos. It contains potentially passwords. So, a lot of us use notes on our phone. I'm not a big proponent of doing that because I don't feel like that's super safe, but some people will put in a note on their phone that contains passwords. It can contain other just helpful information about that person. So that is another key component that I feel like I look at. It can share contact information. So if we're looking for, again, that estate attorney or financial advisor or whoever, they may have listed that person as a contact. So you can kind of see there's just so many things that are attached to our phones these days. And so that is why I say to the families that I work with that you should never shut down your lost loved one's phone until we are certain we have everything we need out of it. So keeping that service active is so helpful because not only does it allow us to access all those things I already talked about, but it will also keep the line open in case there's any calls from creditors or other important contacts that we would need to know. I mean, again, a lot of what I do is help piece together what is that overall picture of what we need to handle for this person's life now that they're no longer here. What do we need to close down and shut off or transition to somebody else? And so the phone just really illuminates a lot of that for me and for the families that I'm working with. So I highly recommend that. Email is another thing. So because we are in such an online world, most of the services and accounts and subscriptions we have are online. And in order to best and most easily close those out after a person's passed away, you have to log in. And so let's assume that your lost loved one didn't have a great way of storing login information. If they don't have a password manager, which I talk about in another series, why I feel like password managers are so important. But let's say they didn't very clearly spell out everything. And I deal with this a lot with my clients is we have no idea what this login information is. We have no idea what the password is. So what we can do is we can select forgot username or forgot password. And then that information that reset link is sent to their email. So then we can go in and we can close things out. It is the easiest way to handle things from my perspective, because by being able to get in the back end of the system, you can easily close out an account. You can easily see if there are credit cards tied to that account that you need to take off because either the account's frozen or you don't want that credit card charged for the service anymore. It just kind of helps tidy things up in a much cleaner way so that you know that it's done. And so I feel like, there's not many ways to do that unless you have access to that email. Email is similar to the phone in that it also illuminates a lot of information. I did a whole blog post about this, but you can actually sort email specifically in the Gmail browser if you have a Gmail account, or your lost loved one rather had a Gmail account. But other web email providers may have this option as well, where you can kind of sort out what are promotions, what is like your social emails from like social networks, and then what are the emails from the people who are actually trying to contact your lost loved one. So you can easily distill down the information that you need to get. So again, it kind of helps me round out that picture of what are those accounts that I need to close out in this person's name. Who are the important people that we either need to let know that this person's passed away, or notify them of needing to transition ownership of something. So maybe we need to let a service, or I'm just trying to think like lawn care, for instance, like letting them know that this person is no longer here, but the wife is the main contact now for this, and switching all of that information over to the wife so that she can take the reins now. That's the kind of stuff that I'm looking for. Of course, it also helps too when I am trying to verify if I see an app on a lost loved one's phone and I am trying to verify if that person actually has an account with that service or subscription or whatever. Searching really quickly for the name of that in the email can verify if there was like a verification code or link sent to that person's email, if there was communication back and forth between that service or subscription and the person that passed away. So I can easily kind of distill down if this is legitimate and something that needs to be taken care of in the email. So I find that it is just so helpful when it comes to that. It also just illuminates like context of things. If there are services that your lost loved one signed up for and you're not sure why, it could, just highlight those conversations. So overall, I mean, you are able to glean so much information from an email. So I so strongly encourage people when they are thinking about getting their estate organized to figure out how do they securely allow their lost loved one to have access to their email. Gmail actually has a function called Inactive Account Manager. And what that is this is a person that you are nominating to receive all of your Gmail as well as other Google Suite information if your account is left inactive for a certain amount of time. So it would basically try and contact you, the person. If you are non-responsive for a certain period of time, then the person that you've dedicated as your inactive account manager is contacted, and they could theoretically receive all of that information that you've distinguished that they could in the inactive account manager settings that they have in Gmail. So I highly encourage people to do that because, again, when I don't have access to email and the loved ones don't have access to email, we are working with limited information at that point, and it just makes the job that much harder, and I just don't think people want to put their family through that. So something to consider as well. And then the final thing that is helpful, and probably the least helpful just in these days and times as we move more online and every company is trying to move you to online bill pay and everything like that, mail is still certainly an option, and it will still illuminate the same things that your phone and your email will, but just in more of like a lagging pattern. So, statements, bank statements that come in the mail, let's say if we don't know where your lost loved one was banking, that can be very helpful to look through their mail to see things like Bank of America or Regions or Pinnacle or whoever that bank is. At least seeing any kind of communication coming from them can at least give us an indication of maybe we should check there. It can also show, of course, where are other assets in their name, where are other accounts in their name, because while communication from a company certainly doesn't indicate that you had an account with them or that there was a subscription with them, but it's a clue. And I think that's why we are always looking for these small indicators of where things can live, just because if you don't know where to start, certainly mail helps a lot. And so that can also help you find just unknown assets too. If there's a statement that comes from an investment company, or if you don't know about a 401k, obviously all of these tax documents that are sent around the same time each year of what you need to file for your return, all of that comes through mail typically. So I say if you are not living in the same city as your lost loved one, to get that mail forwarded to you just so that you're not missing anything. There's no one that would come by theoretically and take mail out of your lost loved one's mailbox, and just keep a close eye on that so you can make sure that if there are these little indicators of things that were in your lost loved one's name, that you can check for that, because I think that is something that's super helpful to look for. So those are kind of my 3 areas that I say families need to check in with when they've lost a loved one: your phone, email, and physical mail, just your average snail mail, and check there first. And then from there, we could start to build out this picture of where everything was in your lost loved one's name, so we know how to tackle it. So I hope that helps, and stay tuned for more information.